Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Level Up Podcast, where we're taking people from agent to entrepreneur. And I've got, of course, my business partner and co-host here, Greg Harrelson. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing good, man. Doing
Good.
good. Excited to be here.
Yep, I'm excited to be back. And we have got a great guest for the audience, Ms. Debbie Grote out of Orange County, California, right?
Right, absolutely.
Outstanding. Welcome, Debbie, to the Level Up Podcast. Appreciate you hopping on today.
Thank you. It's fun. I haven't seen Greg for ages, but he's an old friend, so awesome to be here.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I was, and before we got on this call, it's kind of interesting whenever I'm around people that I've got some old, that I've known for quite a while. We tend to get into conversations very quick, and then we can go in so many different angles. But I have heard your name from time to time. I've been at different places, and people would mention your name. They'd be people that we would, have co-relationships with. So I'm glad to connect in this way. I sure am.
Yep. And so, Debbie, for those that may be listening and don't know kind of your background and history, if you can kind of maybe bring us up to speed. I know you've been in the business for a long time, started when you were 18. Just maybe bring us up to speed on how you got into the business and, those first couple of stages in your growth in the industry.
Sure. I read something the other day that when you're a speaker, you should never say things that give away your age. But, then I read that if you lie about your age, you die sooner. So we'll just we'll just go for the real facts here, right? So yeah, I was a senior in high school. My Sunday school teacher was a broker. And I didn't even know that actually, but I discovered my parents didn't have the money to send me to the college I wanted to go to. And my broker said, why don't you get your real estate license, work for me, fund your way through college, work for a year, get some money, and then do it part-time. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. That's a good idea. So I got my license, and the day I graduated from high school, I actually had already started selling. And in fact, at least a used Cadillac, which I drove to my high school graduation. And I have to say, I never made it to college because I loved real estate, became obsessed with it, made so much money at it that I just couldn't stop. So that's kind of how I began. And really, the broker was terrific because back then we didn't have coaches. That didn't exist, in the real estate space. But he was tough on me. Made me come to work, made me prospect, made me dress older, made me lease the car, made me grow up. And yeah, he was a great mentor. And I was with him for a very long time, Century 21, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what did your first couple of years look like? Being a young agent and all of your clients are significantly older than you. You have no friends that are buying homes. You haven't even bought a home, but you sure are selling them. What were some of the challenges that you felt like what were some of the challenges you faced being a very young agent coming into this industry?
So my broker told me on the first day, he said, you have to lose the Farrah Fawcett hair. You have to buy a suit that makes you look like you're 30. So you have to dress older, and you have to lease a car that makes it look like you know what you're doing. So my first sales job was to get my father to co-sign on a used Cadillac, right? So I talked him into that when I didn't even have my license yet. So then my broker said, you're young, you're stupid, and you're going to screw up a lot. So you're going to need to prospect 5 hours a day. And so he set up the prospecting plans, and he made me prospect 5 hours a day. I had to practice scripts, and he made me preview property for 2 hours a day because he said, you're going to need to have the product knowledge to have the confidence. Mm-hmm. And I think also too, because I was so young and naive, probably too confident, it didn't really even occur to me to be worried about it. Like, I'm sure I was a train wreck my first year of, I remember my first listing, it was kind of a disaster, but I think you just don't know what you don't know. And I just did what my broker told me to do. And then really what happened, guys, the secret is that prospecting that got me to the party, I never changed that routine. So for my entire sales career of 16 years, I always prospected 5 hours a day. But then you get better and you convert more and you build a database, so that machine just starts to build. I just never backed off of that.
Yeah. So why don't you just go ahead? So you started young, you're still young, but you started early. You actually became very successful as an agent. You were really a big producer. So what did you end up getting to when it comes to number of transactions, and what did that look like when it come to staff or team or people?
Well, I wish we had had teams in those days. If we had, I would have done a lot more, probably would have done a lot of things differently, but that didn't even exist. In fact, I was one of the first people in our state to have an admin. And she was an unlicensed admin. She was very good, but she didn't have a license, so she didn't sell or show property or anything like that. I was actually one of the first people to have a cell phone. I actually have the old magazine up here. Somebody framed it for me, and it says car phone, tool, or toy, because they thought it was so bizarre that I had a car phone. But by the time I was 21, I was closing 156 units a year. That was my average. So my goal every month was 12 listings, 12 sales, and then my stretch goal was 15 and 15. Yeah. And I had no help other than my admin. And she did all the back end. And, you know, we didn't do a lot of marketing back then, Greg, as you know, and it was postcards to the farm and the sphere. So that was simple. And to be very clear, it was a different world then. You know, could someone as a single agent today do 156 units? Maybe, because I was working 16 hours a day, which I don't recommend. However, you know, remember, we didn't have all the disclosures and inspections, and purchase agreement for many of those years was one page. So it was different. Some things were more complicated. You know, we had to go present offers in person at 10 o'clock at night, right? But, you know, it was a crazy time, but you're young. So you party or you work, and I chose to work. So by the time I was 21, I was the top agent for Century 21 LA Orange County, sales, units, and production volume, number 3 in the nation, number 8 in the world.
Yeah, that's a heck of an achievement. What would you say your mix of business would be, meaning buyers versus sellers?
I ran about 50-50. Okay, and great. I probably would have preferred less buyers, but because I was young, you know, I did attract a lot of first-time home buyers, and then I would sell them a house, and then they would sell in a couple of years, because people didn't stay as long then, you know, as they do now. And then I would have to sell them another. So I always had to
attract those buyers at a younger age. How were you attracting that? Was that as you got into 20, 21, 22, 23, now your peers are now becoming first-time home buyers, or was it your listings that was getting you the buyers? How would you say what was the source of the buyer flow?
To start off with, open houses. I would do open house every Saturday, every Sunday, sometimes on Thursday afternoon. December, holiday months where it's a little quieter, I might do it every afternoon to pick up a couple of extra buyers. Whether it was my listing or not, I didn't care. I just wanted to meet the buyers. And I was, I guess, good at converting them, you know, getting their information. I was also, because I was previewing so much, I would often be able to take them out after the open house, and sometimes I just sell them one. And if I had to say what's my strength, it would be lead follow-up. So I would just hammer those people until I got them in, you know, in my car, because in those days we put them in our car. So open house initially, and then after that, always open house. I continued to do that. I would do some first-time home buyer seminars, and then of course working my database.
Yeah.
One thing I'm hearing in there, Greg, that she's talking about is, you know, 156 transactions when you started as a single agent with an unlicensed admin is, for people right now, they may look at that and say, well, you know, there's a lot of people I'm finding that might be doing that. But that back then, the technology wasn't there. The
Nope.
lead flow systems weren't there. The follow-up CRMs were there. None of that stuff existed. But the thing that I noticed is everything that you did was all focused on some sort of lead. It was some sort of income generating activity, not all the distractions that we're running around trying to keep up with today. So that's a unique part of probably what you latched onto. My question is, when somebody said, just go do this for 5 hours, why did you do that? Because that's no different than why people are successful now.
I wanted to make the money. You know, I'm a high D personality, and you know, in school I was the kid that if you got A's, you wanted A pluses, and I don't know, I'm just crazy. But my broker would also, he was the kind of broker that would say, I would say, oh, I have 9 sales. He'd go, yeah, well, big deal. You know, why don't you have 12? Right? Like he was never easy on me. He kept raising the bar. And I remember my first Century 21 Awards banquet in Orange County that he took me to, and I only had my license about 3 months. Vicki Morrison Ray, she was the queen. She was number 1. And she walked down the aisle in her white dress, and they handed her roses. And I thought, I am going to beat her. And we became great friends. She actually still, I mean, we've known each other forever. And I did. I beat her within a couple of years. And she took me to lunch, and she's like, how do you do what you do? And I said, well, I'm at the office at 7. I'm calling expireds at 7:30. Then I call my hot leads. Then I call my smear. Then I do my FISBOs. Then I do 2 hours of cold calling. She's like, stop. I don't care. I don't want to do it. You know, and she had a wonderful business with her farm and her sphere, but I was just willing to, pretty much I did it all. You know, all the major lead gen sources were just time blocked into my day.
You know, Brendan, you know, one of the, you brought up, like, if anybody that's listening, the audience here, you've got to pick up on how simple this business is. I mean, so simple. She basically said, I'm consistent at lead generating every day, and I'm relentless on follow-up. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're consistent on generating every day and you're relentless on follow-up, I mean, there's so many other things we can talk about, but the reality is, if we focus on those 2 things, everything else kind of takes care of itself. And one of the biggest disadvantages, I think, that are in the marketplace right now is the disadvantage of choice. Mm-hmm. See, there are so many CRMs and so many systems and so many lead sources and so many Zillows and realtors.coms. There's so many things that it takes so much energy and focus to actually weed through all this to determine, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Should I do this, that? Where back, what she is describing is, hey, I just kept it simple. I just lead generated every day, relentless on follow-up, and the deals appear. I actually believe, Debbie, and I want your opinion on this, I believe that though the business and the real estate industry is different, I believe those things still work today. Well, you're in the coaching. You've got a coaching company, and it's called, is it Forward Coaching? Is that
Forward Coaching.
Mm-hmm. Forward Coaching. So anybody that wants to learn, go to forwardcoaching.com and you know, we'll give Debbie's contact information out before the end of the call. But from a coaching, putting your coaching hat on now, mm-hmm. what are you seeing that agents aren't doing today that maybe, you know, that if they just did this today, they could experience the breakthroughs and the growth that they really are talking about, but for some reason they're just not getting that growth that they want? But what's missing with in the industry right now?
Well, Greg, you know, you and I met back when I was running the Mike Ferry organization, yes. Right? And I was there for 13 years. And, you know, and to Mike's credit, he was very big on routine and system and lead gen, but it was also a lot of cold calls, strangers, right? Which at a certain point will burn people out. And also, I think because now in the world, it's harder to get to people, harder to get their phone numbers, harder to engage with strangers. So what we really focus on, and our coaching clients tend to be, many are more seasoned veterans. You know, they're really looking to develop a business. that they can have a quality of life. I don't want them to work 16 hours a day like I used to do. And also a business that has a database and a system that they can sell, or transfer if they retire. So we're really encouraging them to do more about owning that space of the wise advisor, in their community, and expanding their range, reach, and influence. So I think if you think about what I would encourage them to do differently than what I did, is put more emphasis on things like building their organic networking groups and joint venture partners. B&I groups are fine, but I'm encouraging them more to find high-level professionals who have their ideal client. Get together, bring value to each other, do educational events. We put together 4 educational event kits, and just to give you an example, one of our clients, Jada, who really got crazy with this and loved it and started doing an event a month in January, is now doing a virtual, because she has to, Zoom event every week. And it's move up and downsize. She's focusing on those 2 things. And she's already closed, just from the events, 12 million in production, 2 million pending, and about 3 million of good leads in the pipeline. Now her lead conversion from in-person events, 100% within 90 days. The Zoom events, about 50% within 90 days. Now, if you compare that to Zillow, 1.5 to 3% in 6 to 18 months. So it seems easier to buy leads, but if you're very strategic about doing things that put you in front of your ideal audience and nurture, and that's where CRMs are good. You can nurture those relationships over a period of time. So geographic farming is like building a sphere of influence, working your past clients and sphere more effectively. The educational events, community connection events, joint venture partners, just like today. I do this event with you guys. I get to meet all these great new people. If they reach out to me, they go into my, my communication loop. And now I nurture those relationships. So it's really thinking about it as any other big business would, instead of just grinding some quick leads and then going for that next churn and burn.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down, and I'm not sure if this fits, but, and please tell me if it doesn't, but I wrote down a little note to myself: smaller audience, but more influence.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So you and I know Chris Heller, right? We know Chris Heller. So when I was coaching Chris's team in San Diego, they were doing about 220 units a year, a little bit more. Chris had a database of 20,000 people. Okay, so big. However, the small piece would be more his A group, past clients, sphere, partners. But then anywhere he went, everywhere he went, his radio show, he opted people in to his database. And then his philosophy was, I'm going to market to them until they buy, sell, die, or ask to be opted out. And they would get about 7 to 9 listings a month out of that C group. And they didn't even know who these people were when they called. So it is about focusing on quality. And then it's also making sure you don't lose any of those connections you make, and you put them in that funnel and you nurture them over time.
Yeah, so there's some segmentation there.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So you got the database here, and you got the 20,000 that Chris had, and let's just say that he had this other little subset of 1,500, and he get to that 1,500, and he may have some sort of communication strategy for that. That would be slightly a heightened and enhanced version of what he's doing to the rest of the database. Okay.
Yeah, so if you took that C group, they didn't call them unless they had a new buyer agent that scrubbed them once in a while. They didn't mail market to them. It was all online or targeted ads, where the A or Bs would be more proactive touches and conversations. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's very valuable. What are your thoughts, Brendan?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is from the agent standpoint, how you get started, you get production quickly. And then you've brought us up to the coaching side of it, where now you've got a whole different perspective and you're seeing kind of the challenges maybe the agents may have right now. Maybe help bridge the gap, because this is agent to entrepreneur, and maybe help bridge the gap on how you went from, okay, I'm going to actually get into the business. Now I got some level of success, to branching out and starting to be more about just liking the money, because now you're coming from a contribution standpoint when you're in a coaching company.
Yeah.
So maybe help us understand.
Selling, and in selling real estate, even though you get paid well for what you do, you really hope you're changing people's lives and helping. If you're not, then you probably don't do very well, right? Because if it's just only about the money, but yeah. So bridging the gap, I guess I would say, for me to go from selling to coaching, that actually kind of happened by accident. I had twins, and so they were young, and the real estate schedule was crazy, and I didn't know how to behave myself, because I didn't have a coach to help me behave myself. And that's when Mike, he called me up, and I had never worked with Mike, didn't know him. He said, will you be on my first superstar panel as a guest? So I did, and then I didn't see him for a long time. And then he called and said, would you come in and be a coach here and help run the company and, take over day to day and coach coaches and do the stuff? I kept saying no, but it actually became one of those cases that the offer was too good to say no to. And I thought, this is a new adventure. My husband was in real estate doing his own business, so I just transferred my database over. And then I stepped into that role, which it was time. After 16 years in real estate, I was ready to do something different. If we had had teams at that time, I feel like I probably would have gone in the direction of maybe building a team. But it really wasn't that. It was just more about just sell more houses, and I really wanted to do something different. And so what I've learned in coaching that I would try to get across to everyone here today, though, is what we do differently at Forward is, I think of everyone as very unique. Their personality, their market, their skill set. Greg, one thing you and I remember Mike used to say, I don't want to hear your story because it's all the same. In every market's the same. But that's not true. Beverly Hills market is nothing at all like the market in, Minnesota or Oklahoma. I mean, sure, there's some fundamental things, but I think what I encourage our coaches to do as they work with our clients and encourage our clients to do is, who are you? What is your passion, your personality, your opportunities? And we go first to what they're doing well, let's do it better. And then let's add those new pieces to your business that are a great fit for you. Because if you put the square peg in the round hole, it'll work a little bit. But if you really get that magic of that blueprint that fits who you are, you like what you do, then at that point. And you're more likely to continue to do it, right? Versus just grinding it out.
Yeah, and I like the fact that there's a correlation between what you do and what you're coaching agents to do for their clients, which is be the wise, like you said, wise advisor, and what you do now as you're coaching the clients, because that's really your role. You have the credibility because you already did that. So there's a lot of opportunities in this industry once you get the base foundation of, I can go and create a big business listing and selling homes. Then you see all these opportunities, but it seems like sometimes people want to skip past it and just get to all the other extra stuff, and they never get the foundation.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, I'm dying to ask this question. Okay, you have said a few times that, about a team. Because when you were building this business, you were not building a team. You were just pounding out 150 plus transactions as a solo agent, and which is remarkable. Most people don't comprehend that these days, because everyone just, before most people get to 100 transactions, they've already started developing their team. So they don't, that's just the solo agent doing 150 plus transactions almost going away, in my opinion, in the industry. But why are you still what are you thinking when you say, you know what, if there was teams, if we would have thought of that about that before, I probably would have went that route. What do you see that's making you feel that you would have done that? Why are you saying that? Because I'm not refuting it. I'm just really wondering, what are you thinking in that?
Yeah, and certainly teams are not for everyone. About 60% of who we coach are teams. Mm-hmm. Often they come to us because they're teams that are in a mess and they need to be sorted out. And, you know, we coach people like Sean Stanfield in Huntington Beach. You know, his team does $650 million in volume a year, right? Or Ernie Carswell in Beverly Hills, who's Katy Perry and Fergie's agent. And he's got a fabulous team. But about a year ago, you know Ben Kinney. So I made a decision to merge. I was Ben's first coach when Ben was building his teams, 13 years ago. And I made a decision to merge with Ben as a business partner because I really feel that Ben has perfected the team models, taken it to a whole different level. He has 28 expansion teams across the country. So he's the mothership and they operate in his likeness and with his guidance and support. They do 5,000 sites of business, and when you look at that, you can really, if you get a great block and teams appeal to you, you can perfect your team, perfect your model. And then actually, I think the way Ben's whole expansion thing began is one of his key agents on his team had to move a couple of hours away, didn't want to leave him. And they said, well, let's just lift this up and take it over there. Well, that works so well. Well, now let's take it over there. Let's take it over here. So I think a lot of the new agents coming out of college, maybe business degree, and they're thinking, I don't want to just be an agent. I want to build a mega business here. And also, Greg, you and I, when we got into real estate, what people would do when they kind of grew up is they would go open their own real estate firm.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Well, now it's harder because you're competing with big brands and major entities. So I think having a team is a way to allow the entrepreneurial spirit to thrive, but stay within that big brand that maybe serves them well in so many other ways. Right. It's not for everyone, though. It's not for everyone. And certainly when they come to us for coaching, we don't say, hey, you need to be a team. If that's their goal, we help them do it properly. Or if they have a team, we help them make sure that they are making a profit, because sometimes it's a lot of motion and not a lot of profit. So gotta watch that.
Yeah, very often it seems like. And I think, your background of having credibility in doing the deals as well as coaching, I think those are also some valuable things that a team, somebody who's going to build a team, that if they have those things, I think that's a lot of value for those that are going to be on their team and
sure.
Because they're developing people. And,
right.
And that seems to work very well. I see a lot of teams popping up and they're thinking, well, this person likes to do this and I don't like to do that, but I like to do this and they don't like to do that. Let's just join forces. And that usually kind of unravels at some point.
Right. It needs to be much more strategic than that. But it does give, you more power and clout in a market, right? Because of production. It also hopefully allows the team leader, if the team is built properly, to have a quality of life, and to keep gravitating to the top 20% of what is really their sweet spot. Do they want to continue to take listings? Would they rather just be, the leader of that team or the recruiter for the team? But it really allows them to start replacing themselves so they can really do more of what they enjoy and maybe maximize their billable time.
Yeah. Level up to be from agent to entrepreneur, basically. So tell us a little bit more real quick about your forward coaching. Mm-hmm. So for the audience that might be interested in maybe getting to know you a little bit more, how can they reach you?
Sure.
What kind of programs do you all have? Tell us just a little summary.
Sure. And first of all, you can always go to forwardcoaching.com or just email me direct, Debbie@forwardcoaching.com. And, my belief is custom coaching. So when someone there's no boiler room salespeople on a floor. Our process is if you reach out, one of my customer service people will connect with you and find out what would you like help with. They'll ask some questions, kind of an intake so I can be prepared.
Yes.
And then I actually speak with each incoming client. And the reason I do that is after over 80,000 coaching calls, I'm pretty good at assessing that situation, looking at the puzzle pieces, their disc assessment, their market, and figuring out some strategy that I can recommend on that complimentary call. And then also, if they choose to work with us, I'm the one that picks the coach. So to me, it's a real art and a science to match them with that right coach. Yeah. I guarantee that match. If they meet the coach, they're not a perfect match. They come back to me. I seldom get it wrong though. But our coaches also work as a faculty. And that's one thing, if you're looking at coaching, I think, look at the experience level of the coach, and also no one knows it all. And so our faculty approach, our coaches will recommend that, you know, Greg, you're going to be moving into commercial and that's not my gift. So I'm going to get you over to Abel, who specializes in commercial, or Dave. So we strategically move them around in the faculty as needed.
Right.
And we're quite good at what we do. Our retention rate's very high. Our success ratios, you know, 35, 50% growth in the first year. So I don't ask the private coaching clients to sign a contract. I determined a long time ago that if we do a great job, they'll stay. And if they have a life circumstance that prevents them from being in coaching at the moment, I wouldn't force them. And if they ever leave us, they usually come back. So it works out great. So whether it's 2 calls, 4 calls, or custom packages for brokers, we just really approach each situation as it's very unique.
Well, that's cool. Well, I don't mind sticking my neck out and saying, I've known you for a long time, and I know that you have a wealth of knowledge. So, I mean, I would recommend anyone speaking to you or anything you're involved in. Just because I know the success that you've had, and I've witnessed it, not just heard about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any last thing that you can think of, Brendan, before we disconnect?
Nope. This has been great.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Yeah, I love seeing the Century 21 in the background. It brings me back to the day. Although the logo's changed, it looks nicer.
Oh, you like it, huh? Yeah, you don't get it in the house any longer.
Nice. I really like it. It's great. Yeah. And I'm glad you guys, Hurricane, you're okay. You made it all through, right? So, but thank you for inviting me in. And I hope that, you know, if anything, people would take away from this that really, sure, real estate's different today, some ways tougher, maybe, that, you know, than when you and I got into it. And yet still so many incredible opportunities and different opportunities that when we started, we didn't have the option of. So it's a great, great business to be in.
Yep. And you're still in charge of what you do every day, whether it was back when you started or what we're doing today. You're the one that controls what you get up and do every day, which is just it's a tribute to what you've accomplished and shows that that's true. So,
well, thank you. And again, guys, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're very welcome. Greg, how do we get a hold of you if somebody's wanting to get some extra information? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask me a question or just has a thought they want to share, you know, just go to Facebook and hit me up on Facebook Messenger. It's just the most direct way you can connect with me.
Same here, and we appreciate everybody hopping on and taking a look at this. If you're watching it or you're listening to it, please subscribe and give us feedback. Helps us continue to get great guests like Debbie. So one final time, thank you so much, Debbie, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, Debbie.